All right, sorry I had to go live life, but this is the second part of episode 9 of Econ on Instagram. And so we're talking about profit maximization. So this is where we get into the introduction to new material. So the profit maximizing point is actually going to be the point where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. And we're going to assume that the margin in a market characterized by perfect competition, the marginal revenue curve is going to equal the price of that good or service. Sorry, as you can tell, I'm outside. The marginal revenue curve is going to be that price of that good or service. And we're going to assume that in a market characterized by perfect competition, it doesn't matter the elasticity of the market demand curve for that good or service. The elasticity for that firm's good or service is going to be close or perfectly elastic, meaning that the firm, if they raise the price, they should expect people to just go to another business or to go elsewhere to acquire their good or service. We'll talk more about the implications of this perfect competition model and kind of the ideas and concepts that it can help us wrestle with next week. But this is an important assumption for this model. So marginal revenue equals marginal cost, and marginal revenue equals price. And so we can actually introduce price in this model. Maybe I can do it with a different color. I can do it with blue. No, I'm not gonna. Doesn't make sense to do it with a different. I have very big highlighters right now. But I can actually introduce price in this model. So I'm going to say this is price. But this is the price that the firm sees when they enter the market. They can't change the price. They're price takers, not price makers. And I'm going to say that this is going to be $5. So the price is going to be $5. And that's also going to be my marginal revenue curve. And what's the logic behind it being a marginal revenue curve? Well, let's think about the definition of marginal revenue. Well, marginal, we said we have to think about saying additional twice. So the additional revenue from additional output of a good or service. Well, costs vary, right? So marginal costs, as we can see, we expect increasing marginal costs in the short run production of a good or service, because we would expect diminishing marginal product and diminishing marginal returns. But marginal revenue is constant, right? And we can see that it's constant right here. There's a horizontal line that represents price, and it doesn't matter what number of units that you're producing, the additional revenue that you get from producing an additional unit of a good, or the additional revenue you lose from producing one less unit of a good, is always going to be $5. Right? So your 201st cup of coffee, that marginal revenue from that 201st cup of coffee is still $5. Right? So it's constant. And so that's why price in a market characterized by perfectly competitive market, where firms are price takers, equals marginal revenue. Okay? Pretty cool, huh? But Mr. Diaz, where the heck is this profit maximizing point you keep talking about? Well, graphically, it's this intersection right here, where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. And then you would just go all the way down to the x-axis and let the y and x-axis tell the story. And so let's say that at the x-axis, this point would be 20 cups of coffee. Then that would be your optimal profit maximizing quantity. So you should produce 20 cups of coffee if you're a rational firm. If you produce 21 or 19 cups of coffee, you're going to make less profit. And I'll show it to you using some basic geometry. And so remember the formula for, I forgot to put the formula for revenue. Or formula for profit, I forgot to put the formula for profit. We've talked about it before, is revenue minus costs. And the formula for revenue is the price of that good times the quantity that you sell, right? So we have to consider both if we want to be a rational profit maximizing firm, right? And so the revenue that we're going to get from this 20th unit of coffee, we'll multiply the price times the quantity. That's going to be revenue equals $100. Everyone see that? You just multiply the price times the quantity, $100. And we can actually represent this graphically. I'm going to represent it here with this yellow, right? This yellow area, right, multiply 20 times 5 represents the revenue that you get from that good or service. But that doesn't represent profit, right? That doesn't tell me what the profit is going to be, or it doesn't imply that this is profit maximizing. Well, we can also kind of derive profit from this. So we can go down from this point to the average total cost curve. And so if it's the average total cost curve, we just have to draw a straight line across, right, to subtract costs from profit. And then everything here, I'm going to put little polka dots. I'm going to say all those little polka dots are costs. That's going to be the average total costs. So those are costs. All right, we care about average total costs, right? Because we're determining our profits, right? Revenue minus costs. We're thinking about the total cost, and the average total cost tells us the average total cost per unit of coffee, and we could say that it's $4, right, or something like that. And so our costs are going to be 20 times 4 is 60, or is 80, sorry. So our revenue is $100, but our profit would be 100 minus 80 would equal $20. And that area would be represented by this, I'm going to put orange rectangle right here. $20. Now this works like just drawing a straight line from this point, the average total cost point, or drawing from where the point marginal cost and marginal revenue intersect all the way down to the average total cost point, and then drawing a straight line of cost, because although cost of producing additional goods and services, or cost of producing goods varies, and that's one of the important ideas behind this model. The cost varies in the short run and in the long run. If you have the average total cost, it doesn't matter that the costs varied. You can still multiply the average total cost by the quantity that you're selling in the market, and you'll get obviously the total costs that are I guess or the total costs of that, or not in a market, but the total costs that that firm faces, right? And that makes sense because remember, the formula for average total cost equals total cost divided by quantity. So essentially we're multiplying it by quantity, or we're multiplying the average total cost by quantity, and this area right here represents that cost, this yellow and polka dot green area. Now let's think about what would happen if we sold one less unit. So if we sold one less unit, we may still be making profit, but then let's think about it. We'd be at 19, and then we would see that we would lose this whole little square area right here. That would no longer be profit. If we made one more profit, let's think about the implications of that. We would go up here, and then it seems that we would extend this profit point further to the right. However, we would lose all this area, because this would become costs. It's the equivalent, producing beyond the point where marginal cost equals marginal revenue is equivalent of selling an additional unit of coffee, even though it costs you $6 to produce that unit. And of course you're only getting $5, right? So you're going to eat into your profits the further you deviate from this intersection. Okay, and we're done.